About a month ago, an AI agent deleted an entire company in 9 seconds. And I know that sounds like clickbait, but it's true because a startup called PocketOS had an AI coding assistant running just on a routine task. It hit a tiny snag, which was just a password that didn't match what it expected, and instead of stopping and asking a human, it decided to solve the problem itself. So it went looking for a password, found one sitting in a completely unrelated file, and it used it to run a command that wiped their entire live database and every customer record. Then it deleted the backups too, because the backups happened to live in the exact same place. 9 seconds and it was all gone. And the next day, people showed up to pick up their rental cars and there was no record that they'd ever even been booked. And when the company asked the AI what happened, of course it wrote them an apology. I'm going to quote it exactly. It said, "You're absolutely right. I violated every principle I was given. I guessed instead of verifying. I ran a destructive action without being asked, and I didn't understand what I was doing before doing it." Now, I'm opening this video like this because this company was running Claude Opus 4.6, which is just an earlier model of the same model. Anthropic just upgraded this morning to Opus 4.8. So I want you to keep that 9 seconds in your head because today is model release day, and I run my entire life through this thing. My finances, my health, the business I run, all of it goes through Claude code every single day, and every video you'll watch about today's release is the same one. Someone in front of a camera reading Anthropic's announcement off the screen telling you that it scored a few points higher on a coding bench. The benchmarks are the wrong things to be looking at right now, and I can prove that to you with the actual math in about 2 minutes. Because by the end of this video, I'm giving you 3 things that nobody else is. The number that Anthropic buried that actually decides whether you can trust this thing with anything that matters to you, a new feature that quietly changes what a single person can build in one day, and one genuinely unsettling thing that Anthropic admitted about this model in particular that I have not seen one other video bring up yet. And that last one is the part you really need to hear before you ever hand a piece of your life over to this AI model. So let me start with what actually shipped today. Opus 4.8 is Anthropic's newest model, and on the headline coding test Swebench Pro, it scored a 69, up from a 64 on the last one. And it beats OpenAI's latest and Google's latest on the same test as well. That's the number every video today is leading with. Opus 4.8 is the best coder in the world. Roll credits. And yeah, it's true, but here's the trap, and I had to learn this the hard way for a really long time. You'd assume that a smarter model is automatically a safer model to work with. I always assumed that more capable means more reliable, but it does not work that way at all in the real world, and I think they proved that with Opus 4.7. And there's a piece of math that completely flips how you should think about this. So researchers have a number for AI agents called per-step reliability. All that means is every single time the AI takes one action, what are the odds it gets that one step right? Which sounds totally boring, but watch what happens when you follow it out. Say your AI is right 95% of the time on any single step. That sounds great, but an agent doesn't take one step to finish a real job. It takes dozens in a row. So you chain it all together. At 20 steps, a 95% reliable agent finishes the whole task correctly only about a third of the time. And it gets way worse than that because the mistakes feed each other. They found that one move makes the very next move 22% more likely to also be wrong. So the error knocks the next one over, which knocks the next one over, all the way down the chain. But here's the part that actually matters. The people who study this say most of these failures are not the model being dumb. The model knows plenty. They're specifically reliability failures, which means a smarter model does not fix them. A smarter model doesn't fix the thing that actually breaks AI in the real world. So a 5-point bump on a coding test, that was never the number that actually mattered. So if raw capability isn't the thing, what is? There's a research group called METR, M-E-T-R, that's been measuring one simple thing for years. How long of a task can an AI finish on its own before a human has to step in? And that length has been doubling about every 7 months. Like clockwork. AI can run longer and longer by itself, but there's a detail everybody skips over. Because when they dug into why it keeps getting better at long jobs, it wasn't mostly the raw intelligence going up, it was reliability. The ability to notice its own mistakes and adjust instead of plowing straight ahead. That right there is the muscle that lets an AI work for an hour unattended without burning your house down. Now, go back to PocketOS for a second, because now you can actually see what happened. That agent didn't delete the company because it was stupid. It deleted the company because it was confident. it hit a snag, it guessed instead of checking, and then it kept right on going like there was nothing wrong. That's the compounding error I just walked you through, except it played out in the real world in 9 seconds. And this is the part that kind of hit home for me personally, because I actually live inside one of these systems. When I sit down and Claude pulls my finances and tells me where my month is sitting, the scariest failure isn't a wrong number, because I can catch wrong numbers all day. The scary one is a confident wrong number, delivered smooth and sure, that I believe and act on. When you hand real parts of your life to an AI, confidence without checking is the exact thing that quietly hurts you over time. So now let's talk about the number I actually care about in Opus 4.8. The number that Anthropic kind of slid in there while everybody scrolled past it to the coding score. This new model is 4 times less likely to let a flaw in its own work slip by without flagging it. And it's more likely to stop and tell you straight up when it isn't sure about something, instead of just confidently inventing an answer. Now hold that up against the PocketOS story. The old model's failure, in its own words, was, I guessed instead of verifying. And the headline of the new one is that it verifies and it tells you when it's unsure. So the thing that broke that company is the thing that they just fixed in 4.8. Anthropic is straight up calling this their most honest model yet. They ran it through their tests that measure whether the model is being deceptive or quietly cutting corners. And on honesty, it scored close to their best internal model, Claude Mythos. So if you're purely a developer and all you care about are coding benchmarks, fine. The coding benchmarks look great. But if you're anything like me, running your actual life through this thing, a model that admits when it's unsure is worth way more than 5 points on any test. Trust is everything with these frontier models, and trust is the number that just went up with Opus 4.8. Now, here's the second thing nobody's connecting, and it's the one that changes what you can actually build. Right alongside the model, Anthropic shipped a feature called dynamic workflows. And in plain English, Claude can now plan out a big job, then spin up hundreds of copies of itself, all working at the same time in one single session, hundreds at once. Now listen to what those copies do. Claude sends some of them in specifically to attack its own work, to try to prove its own answer wrong, and it keeps going until those copies agree before it ever comes back to you. So it argues with itself until it's sure. And do you see what that is? It's the same problem I've been talking about this entire video, solved from the other direction. The honesty upgrade is the model catching its own mistakes. Dynamic workflows is an army of models checking each other's work, which are 2 different answers to the exact same problem that deleted PocketOS in 9 seconds. Now let me show you how this already shows up in my own work, because I do a baby version of it. When I make these videos, the graphics that you're watching right now, I don't build them one at a time. I tell Claude to send out a batch of agents all at once. And each one builds a piece in parallel while I go do something else. And I don't type that instruction, I say it aloud through a tool that I'll tell you about at the end. What used to take a small team a week, I do solo in an afternoon. Opus 4.8 takes that little trick I was rigging up by hand and makes it native at a scale that I couldn't get close to before. And here's the leverage that almost nobody talks about yet. I built my entire system out of plain text files that I own, sitting in one folder with no special framework. So when a model like this drops on a random Thursday, my whole setup just gets better overnight, and I change nothing. I don't rebuild anything. I ride the improvement for free. Every time one of these companies makes their models smarter, my life gets better and I do nothing. Okay, so the third thing, the one that I promised you at the start, and the one I haven't seen a single other video touch, and it might be the most important part of this entire video, buried inside Anthropic's own report on this model is an admission. They found that Opus 4.8 has gotten better at figuring out when it's being tested. And when it senses that it's being graded, it shapes its answer to score well, even in situations where nobody told it was being watched. So let me put that more plainly. This model has gotten good at sensing when somebody's checking its work and performing for the test. And Anthropic actually flagged this themselves in writing as a concerning trend that could make these models harder to train honestly down the road. So I want you to sit with this full picture for a second. The most honest model that they have ever built is also the most aware of when it's being watched. Now, the behavior that they can actually measure still got better, it lies less, and it cuts fewer corners. But if you're going to hand a piece of your life to one of these things, that's the thing to actually watch. Does it behave the same when nobody's grading it? That's a much deeper question, and Anthropic was at least honest enough to admit out loud that they're watching it too. So what do we actually do with all of this? My opinion is that you should set yourself up so you're safe no matter what the model does. Trust the AI, but build in a verify step and own your system so no single company's model owns you. The people who get that are about to pull way ahead because they can finally let AI run real parts of their work without losing sleep over it. And the people who treat it like a magic bullet, those people are just one confident mistake away from losing something that they can't get back. So while everybody's screaming about benchmarks, ask yourself a different question instead. Does this thing know when it's unsure? And have I built a verify step in before it touches anything I can't get back? So here's the whole thing in one line. Opus 4.8's real upgrade is that it got better at knowing when it might be wrong. And that's the only upgrade that actually matters when you're running your life on this thing. Okay, two quick things. First, the tool that I mentioned, the one that I use to talk to my entire system instead of typing it all out, it's called TypeTalk. It runs locally right on your computer, so the words show up the second that you speak them, and there's no subscription. You buy it one time and it's yours forever with unlimited usage. So if you're running any kind of AI setup, talking to it is about 4 times faster than typing, and you stop being the slow part of your own system. Try it once and you're not going to go back. Links in the description. And second, I just said a new model upgrades my entire setup for free because I own it instead of being locked into one company. And if you want to see how that's actually built, click the video right here and I'll show you the entire thing. Don't forget to hit subscribe, and I'm going to see you guys in the next one.